Welcome to In the Lobby with Jared Baldwin. This podcast exists to give biblically faithful answers to your real life questions. But before we get into it, take a breath, find a comfy spot, and settle in. Thank you for joining me in the lobby. I want you to imagine this story of the man who had it all. He went to New York City with some big dreams. He was going to work at a big company and slowly work his way up the ladder to be one of the bosses with the biggest pay packages with one of the nicest apartments. And after 15 years of moving there, he did it. He found himself with an apartment overlooking Central Park. Beautiful view. He could see the people walking in the beautiful forestry right in the middle of this bustling city. He was making a paycheck larger than he ever could have imagined. He had so many employees that reported to him. Whenever he walked in the room, people gave him respect. This guy had everything that he wanted. But one day he woke up. The early morning, and he walked over to his window, and it was dark outside with a little bit of light behind him so he could just see his reflection in that window. And he took a moment to look at himself, to look himself in the eyes, and he realized something. He thought, I feel empty. But it's almost like, how could this be, right? Because he has everything that he wanted. He has everything that he's been working for. Every goal that he wanted to set out to achieve, he did. But as he's looking at himself in the mirror, the only thing that he can think is that it? Something in his heart thought, it's not enough. And so his mind started racing about maybe the next ladder he can climb, or what's the rung after this? How can I move my way up, make more money, get more social status, whatever it was. But as he started to think about these things, he paused for a second and something dawned on him. Honestly, it was a pretty scary realization. He thought, wait a second. I thought I've been thinking this whole time that when I got here, I would finally be happy. And I'm here. But it doesn't feel like I thought it would. He thought that when he finally got to this spot, that feeling, that ache in his soul would go away. He could achieve his way out of that restlessness. But as soon as he started thinking of the next goal to climb, he said, no, I'm already where I said I would be happy if I was here. That's where I am. I kind of said that in a weird way, but I think you understand the point that I'm trying to make. He couldn't just set another goal, couldn't just run another race, couldn't just climb another rung on the ladder. He realized that his achievement, everything that he thought that he wanted, was not filling that feeling of emptiness. Now, you may have experienced something like that before, and maybe it was an apartment overlooking Central Park. Maybe it was after you got married and had kids. Maybe it was after you finally got that dog, right? No kids for us. We're dog people, right? Maybe it was finally after the promotion at work that you were going for, or whatever it might have been. You got the dream job that you wanted, and I'm sure we've all had this thing where we thought that once we achieved this, we would be happy, and then we get there. But that ache in our soul, that restlessness, that unhappiness, that unsatisfaction just doesn't seem to go away. We get what we wanted and we thought, is that it? You know, I was inspired to make this video because I read a quote from this book called Confessions by St. Augustine, or St. Augustine, however you want to say it. I'm not going to fight anybody in the comments. I'll say it both ways. St. Augustine or St. Augustine. And this book is literally him writing, I'm almost halfway through, literally him writing a reflection about his life. And on the very first page of this book, he has one of the greatest quotes I think has ever been written by a church father. He wrote this on page... Where is it? You know what? I have it in my notes. I'm just going to read it from my notes. He said this on page 1. He said, "You stir man to take pleasure in praising you, because you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you." I want to read that last part. Because you have made us for yourself. He is talking to God. You've made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. See, this feeling of unsatisfaction, this feeling of unhappiness, this feeling of being empty, this restlessness in our soul, this is not a new feeling. He wrote this, early church father. I mean, this was within decades of some of the apostles, right? He was one of the very first, one of the most greatest and revered Christian writers, but this was a long, long time ago. But he shares this same sentiment that we feel today, this restlessness that we can search the entire world and achieve whatever we want to achieve in status and pleasure and wealth and whatever, but our hearts are restless until they find our rest in the one who created us for himself, and the God who made us for himself. You know, a much dumber theologian said it in a much less sophisticated way. Back in my early days of the YouTube channel, I made a video when I was 13 or 14 years old. I was super young. Actually, no, I was probably 15 or 16, which makes it a little more embarrassing. But anyway, it was literally a YouTube video about the story of a dishwasher. Stay with me here for a minute, but this dishwasher gained sentience, and all of a sudden he can move around. He had arms and legs. He's like, what the world? He got pipes coming out, and he can move, right? And so he walks outside the house, and he's like, wait, this is awesome. I can go explore. I can go do things. And so he started walking around and enjoying himself, but eventually he realized, I'm kind of low on energy. I need some kind of energy to fuel myself because I'm getting pretty tired. And so he went into the ice cream shop that was in the town. He went into the ice cream shop and he got some ice cream, and he had some ice cream thrown in the washing machine. Or was it a dishwasher? Anyway, I think it was a dishwasher. He had some ice cream thrown in the dishwasher and he ate it. And he's like, that really didn't give me energy. So he walked outside feeling a little more desperate. And he's like, I got to go find something else. So he walked to the apple orchard. And he goes to the apple orchard. He starts grabbing all these apples and throwing them in and trying to eat them and do what he can. But those apples weren't giving him energy either. And so slowly he started to get more and more depleted. And so he ended up on the side of the road. He's walking, trying to find something else that he can try to get energy until he shuts down with nothing left to give. Until a man comes up with his truck, finds the dishwasher on the side of the road, and he loads him in, brings him back to the house, and he plugs him up to an outlet. And when the dishwasher comes back to life, the guy looks at him and says, you can try to find your energy. You can try to find life from all these things, but you were created to find it from this power source. There's a danger in getting our energy from the wrong power source and trying to find satisfaction and trying to find life in the wrong places. Like I said, a much dumber theologian said it in a much less sophisticated way with the story of a dishwasher. But I think the principle is true. God created us for himself, and each one of us is going to have a God-sized hole in our heart that we can try to fill with other things, but we'll never be fully satisfied until we fill it with God himself. And so you might be watching this video thinking, okay, Jared, that sounds cool. That sounds great. But how do we fill that hole? Like, how do we satisfy this restlessness? How do we finally go back to God in such a way where he can fill us as our creator? Well, thankfully, Jesus offers us a roadmap to find that inner peace, to find that sense of meaning and that purpose that we were created for. Okay, so what is that roadmap? Well, one of my favorite passages in the Bible is Matthew 16, where Jesus gives this command, and I think this is him offering that roadmap for us, beginning in verse 24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done." So in this roadmap to find meaning, on this roadmap to find what we were created for, I think the step one is exactly what Jesus laid out. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow him. This goes very countercultural to a lot of the things that you'll hear today, like go follow your heart, go pursue your passions. I don't know if anybody's ever heard phrases like that, but Jesus begins with deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. I think there's a big temptation to follow what we want, to follow our own dreams, to keep on working to make your dreams a reality, right? Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the opposite where we're more naturally inclined to just avoid pain, to choose the easiest option. I'm going to just watch Netflix at night. I'm going to scroll when I wake up in the morning. I'm going to go to work and do the bare minimum, right? We want to avoid as much pain as possible. But Jesus' call, it's not the easy way out. It's hard. It's difficult. There may be pain and hardship, but the thing is that he's asking us to choose the right kind of pain and hardship, because life is always going to come with hardship, whether you choose to or not. Like, if you are a living human, life is going to be hard at certain points. And Jesus is offering, wouldn't you just choose the kind of hard life that gives you the meaning and purpose that you were created for, to glorify, to honor God? So he tells us, deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. Let me take a look at verse 25, because he says, whoever wants to save their life will lose it. I was reading this, trying to think, what would it mean to save your life? What does Jesus mean when he says, whoever tries to save your life will lose it? Well, I had a few things written down. Maybe saving your life looks like protecting yourself. Maybe it looks like living for comfort. Maybe it looks like choosing to do whatever you want to do in any given moment, right? Maybe that's chasing success to save your life, what you want to do. Maybe that's chasing pleasure. Maybe that's chasing approval, chasing safety, chasing the sense of control. We want to be in control. I think that's a big part of trying to save our life. But if you spend your life trying to preserve or control it, you end up actually losing what your life is really meant for. You may gain comfort, but you're going to miss out on purpose. You may gain approval, but you'll still feel empty. You might gain possessions, but you'll feel lost. Like, even though you got all these dreams that you wanted, but something still isn't right. It doesn't shut up that critic inside of us that says something is wrong. Even though we try to outwork him and outrun him and make dreams that are so big that surely they'll satisfy that hole, but it just doesn't work. Let me go to verse 25 then, because Jesus says, whoever will lose your life will find it. Well, what does it mean to lose your life? Is Jesus saying die? I don't think so. He's not saying that at all. So what does it mean to lose your life? I think what he's really saying is you got to let go of control. You got to let go of wanting to map out and plan out everything so tightly. You got to let go of trying to control things so that they go the way that you want them to go. I'm reminded of the Lord's Prayer. Disciples asked Jesus, how do we pray? And one of the first lines he says is, Father, your will be done, your kingdom come. I think that's what it means to lose your life, is you're surrendering your own dreams. You're surrendering this need to make plans. You're surrendering this need to control your future and control the outcomes. And you're saying, God, I trust you. I think that's a part of what it means to lose your life. Part of what it also means is dying to our own desires. That's what it means to deny yourself. God, I want this, but even more than I want this thing, I want to follow and honor you. What else does it mean to lose your life? It means to follow Jesus even when it costs you. I've been I've reemphasized this point many times on the podcast, that The Bible is meant to transform the way that we live in a real and tangible way, which means we will take different actions because we read the Bible. We will take different actions because we became a follower of Christ in this pursuit to imitate a lifestyle that looks like His. We can't just read the Bible for head knowledge. We need to do something about it and change the way that we live according to how Jesus calls us to live. If you let go of your plans, your ego, and you follow, if you let go of your plans, your ego, and your need for control, and you follow Jesus, it can feel like a loss on the surface. But that's where you actually find real life, real satisfaction. That's when you can find that thing that your soul has been longing for. You can find this purpose that the world can't give. You can find this peace that the world can't give. You can find this identity that the world can't give, this satisfaction that the world can't give. If we would just let go trying to control everything and give it up to God, to say, God, I'm going to deny myself, pick up my cross, and follow you. That's how we can find the things that the world cannot give us. Maybe the life you're trying to build for yourself is the very thing keeping you from the life your soul is actually longing for. I'm going to read that one more time. Maybe the life that you're trying to build for yourself is the very thing keeping you from the life that your soul is actually longing for. Maybe you've experienced in the way that Augustine said it, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. Is your heart restless? Do you have this hole in your heart, this unsatisfaction, this longing for peace, this thing that cannot be filled by accomplishments and achievements and approval and admiration? And you try these things of the world, but it's just not giving you what you hoped it would. Well, praise the Lord that we have the answer, and His name is Jesus. Let me go back to the passage that we looked at. This time I'll keep reading in verse 26. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If you spend time and contemplate on these words, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Jesus is saying, look, you can gain the whole world. Whatever you're trying to strive after, you want to get famous? Great. You want to get rich? Great. You want to climb the ladder? Cool. You want to be powerful, respected, accomplished? Great. You can gain the whole world. Jesus is just asking a question. What do you have to sacrifice to get there? What do you have to sacrifice to get there? The world tries to tell us to give up everything that we have to get a version of success that won't actually satisfy us. Jesus says, I have the secret to being content in all circumstances. We read that in His word through Paul. It's doing life with your Creator and in pursuit of Him in the way that He calls us to pursue Him. Some of us like to do this kind of casual pursuit thing. We'll follow God in the way that we want to pursue Him. But if we want to truly find that satisfaction, that peace and calm, that restlessness, that we need to follow Him in the way that He asks us to follow Him, in the way that He outlines for us to follow Him. It doesn't matter if you're poor, unknown, powerless, hated, and insignificant. If you're following God, right, those things don't matter. Because in God's eyes, you are valued, cherished, beloved, redeemed. So it doesn't matter how the world views you if your Creator, if your Lord says, I love you. You are my son. You are my daughter. We spend so much time working for the opinion of the world, forfeiting our soul, not searching for the opinion that God has for us. If we spent less time searching for positive favor around in the world, maybe we'd spend a little bit more time contemplating just how much God loves us, and that hole, that unsatisfaction would be fulfilled. Verse 27, for the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. I want to use this video as an encouragement to remind someone that when we're in that eternal judgment, you're not going to be judged on your stock portfolio. You're not going to be judged on your retirement, the amount that you retired with. You're not going to be judged by your grades, not going to be judged by your sports accomplishments or your career success. You're not going to be judged on your social media views or followers. You're not going to be judged on a lot of these pursuits that the world tries to lift up and say, this is a worthy goal, but those aren't the things that God is going to judge us by. And in fact, if we spend all that time pursuing those areas that the world elevates, that the world glorifies, we may actually be judged harshly because those things became a distraction from us chasing God. We chase those things instead of chasing God, following after Him, denying ourselves, picking up our cross and following Him. God won't be impressed by your worldly accomplishments. I wrote this down in my notes because I thought it was funny. I just imagine this eternal judgment scene, and God is looking at you from, I don't know how it's going to look, so don't judge my theology on this. This is just a funny mental picture in my head. God's sitting up on his throne, and we're standing there in front of him, and he's reflecting on our lives, and he pulls out this scroll, and he starts reading it, and it's an account of our life and our accomplishments and what we've done. And as he's reading this scroll, he's looking at you like, wow. He's like, whoa, are you serious? We're like, God, what? He says, you had how many followers on TikTok? Like, he's not going to do that, right? That's not what the eternal judgment is going to be like. He's not going to glorify and emphasize those same things that the world does. His judgment is going to look a lot different than the opinions of those in the world around us. Paul tells us what the judgment will really be like in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, starting in verse 12. If anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day of judgment will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each person's work. If what has been built survives, the builder will receive a reward. If it is burned up, the builder will suffer a loss, but yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames. See, I'm not advocating for following God, or your accomplishments in the area of following God are what merits or earns your salvation. Because he says, even if everything is burned up, you're still going to escape, but you're going to have to run through some fire to get there, right? So what he's saying is build the right kind of things. He says you can build with gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw. If there's fire put to that, what's going to burn up? The wood, the hay, and the straw. And so I think it's worth looking at your life and evaluating, okay, in my pursuits, in what I'm choosing to spend my time doing, and what I'm chasing after, what here is gold, silver, and costly stones? And what here is wood, hay, and straw? What's going to burn up? What's not actually going to matter in that eternal judgment? I think that whatever you do to glorify God, which, by the way, that can be all things. We can do all things to the glory of God. But whatever you do with the intention to glorify God, that is the costly stones, the gold, and the silver. Whatever you do to glorify yourself, that is the wood, the hay, and the straw. And that eternal judgment, it's going to burn up and it's going to be gone. So the question is, how do you want to stand in this eternal judgment? Now, let me finally get to the title of this episode as we wrap up here. Because knowing that this is what the eternal judgment was going to be like, God gave us this thing called a conscience. And whenever you're lost, sometimes that's a good place to go. Whenever it starts acting up, it's always a good thing to listen to it. Our conscience is kind of like a check engine light on the dashboard of our car, right? It says, hey, something is wrong here. Something you need to pay attention to. Something you need to change. We got to stop going in this direction. We got to do something about this. We got to fix this somehow. That's what our conscience is like. And so if we're not pursuing the right things, if we're pursuing wood, hay, and straw, our conscience might say, hey, we're missing the point. Maybe that's that restlessness that Augustine talked about. It's our conscience saying we're missing something, right? Our conscience also comes up when it comes to sin, because how will those things be judged in the eternal judgment? Right? That's why God gave us a conscience, so that we may know what is a worthy pursuit and what is not. And also the way that we can evaluate that is through His Word. His Word has plenty of instruction on how to live, and praise God for that, because then we are not lost. We can be well equipped. We can be prepared. We can present ourselves as a worker approved when we stand before God. God puts this eternal, I'll say it more concise way by reading my notes. God puts this internal dashboard light that goes off saying, you got to check the engine here, hoping that you listen to the restlessness of your soul, recognize that something is wrong, and make the choice to follow Him instead. So if there's part of you that feels empty, lost, or you're questioning if anything really matters, I want to point you to the only one that can give us purpose, our Creator. Because when you follow Jesus, you can lose everything in the eyes of those around you, but you'll be rich in the eyes of God. Which, by the way, His opinion is the only one that matters. And that right there is the only path to true peace, satisfaction, and rest. Ladies and gentlemen, I pray this video was a blessing to you. And that's all I got. Peace. Hey, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. I hope that it illuminated the Bible in a real, practical, and impactful way. If you want to hear more, just check out the other videos on this channel. And thanks again for joining me in the lobby. Hey, before you go, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my brand new book, Walk Through the Shadows. This book is going to revolutionize the way that you read Psalm 23 and completely change the way that you understand that declaration that the Lord is my shepherd. How does it do that? Well, there's a story woven into every chapter here about a father teaching his son how to be a shepherd. So not only do you get insight into those cultural dynamics, but as you read it, you start to understand what Jesus meant when He said, I am the good shepherd. More than anything else, this book is going to show just how much God cares for us and just how much He loves you. If any of that sounds good, you can pick up a copy for yourself on Amazon now.